Hey, folks, we're back, and Alan promised you a political free discussion, but I think he just lied. But we'll get back to you in a second. Here we are talking about GitOps, and we have this report over on DevOps.com put together by the folks at Octopus Deploy, and it suggests that people are adopting GitOps alongside new platforms. So therefore, it's evolutionary, and it's mainly being driven by the rise of things like Kubernetes, and then people are willing to reconsider their software engineering practices. There's also a whole conversation going on around platform engineering. But Garima, what's your take on what's going on here? Is GitOps and platform engineering kind of joined at the hip somehow or orthogonal to each other? And what makes people actually change their workflows?
Okay, so let's reflect on the findings of the report first. And I was looking at the report. It seems that 660 software development professionals put their views onto this report. 93% said they have adopted GitOps in some way, shape, and form, right? And the majority of that depends on different factors. There is also like an increase in adoption of GitOps. There is a definite kind of rise of interest in the community, and GitOps has helped industry segments to kind of push the needle for reliability, auditability, collaboration, and all those kind of good components which technology can bring forward. Traceability is another one, right? So I think GitOps has come a long way. I wouldn't say that GitOps is a silver bullet, though, because it has its own flaws. If you ask the community, I mean, the open source community is very vocal about things which doesn't work or GitOps doesn't fix, right? So if you think about like large organizations with multiple repositories, siloed environments, there is a lot of challenge in onboarding to such kind of revolutionary change, right? So if you have seen the report, 7% also say that they would stop using GitOps. I think these 7% work for large ecosystem or large enterprises and probably are stifled by the siloed environment and the ecosystem. And there are many environments in like big enterprises, right? So there where I think platform engineering comes as savior. And I also feel that platform engineering will not be a silver bullet, as you say. I mean, it works for big enterprises, to be honest. I mean, platform engineering, if you see like how and who are the takers of this kind of movement, is like big large enterprises, tier one customers, right? So those are people who will be onboarding to that. And of course, if you think about the challenges which we have like spoken about from a GitOps perspective, platform engineering could resolve those challenges in certain extent, and they can bring some advanced tooling, which I can talk a little bit later. I also want other panelists to be contributing to this discussion, so I give it back to Mike, you, and maybe you can come back to me for some more future roadmap items.
Absolutely. Alan, I can't help but wonder sometimes when I look at all this stuff, is this just like fashion trends in software engineering? We just kind of like bounce back and forth between things, and this month, it's wide lapels and thin tots.
I don't want to sound like one of these old fogies who say, "Oh, there's nothing new under the sun." But there is nothing new. No, I'm kidding. There are new things, but look, just a couple words here. First of all, this survey comes to us from Octopus Deploy, the people who acquired CodeFresh, who are the people behind Argo, which is the main GitOps platform, open source platform. And they offer hosted GitOps. So, you got to take the findings, I think, with a bit of a grain of salt. And so I would caution and mention that. Secondly, though, I was at PlatformCon last week in the in-person day in New York City. The virtual event went on all week, and there was an in-person day in London. They used to say about platform engineering, well, once you got your Kubernetes set up, it's all good, right? That was the beginning and the end of platform engineering. But no, it's not just Kubernetes. The big emphasis in platform engineering now is on what we call IDP, right? Internal development the internal developer platforms. And you're right, Garima, it's a big company game, right? Because you've got to have enough developers to go develop a platform or use a platform that they're all going to use, so you have some standardization. Now, part of that IDP extends into the DevOps CI/CD tail, if you will. And that's where the GitOps lies. So this is right in the sweet spot for platform engineering. You're using Kubernetes, you got an IDP, why not incorporate, GitOps in there as your way to move that along? GitOps has always been closely linked with Kubernetes, with cloud native, right? Because the old CI/CDs, Jenkins, some of the older ones like that, didn't really work with Kubernetes and cloud natively. GitOps did. So I do think, in spite of the obvious bias of the company doing the survey, I think the results pretty much show where the market is. It is being adopted. I think larger organizations that are using IDPs are using GitOps as part of that, and because they increasingly are using a cloud native architecture, microservices, and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, I will actually add to this discussion because, whether it is platform engineering or GitOps, there's I'll start with GitOps, like what key challenges which are not addressed by GitOps. And then we can also discuss if they are addressed by platform engineering or not. So, for example, the big challenge which we see from a practitioner's perspective is secure secrets management, for example. GitOps has been struggling with that inherently, and it doesn't solve that problem of secure secret management, right? So probably this is something which needs to be solved through GitOps community itself, the future roadmap item, and how do you integrate many environments and storing secrets and Git and making it safe, right? Another main problems when you see the adoption percentage is also related to branching and environment management. So to a certain extent, environment management the problem can be solved by platform engineering, right? But branching strategy is another issue which probably platform engineering will not solve, but probably the community and the teams and the enterprise themselves have to think about a structure, how to create how to not to create an unnecessary complexity in the environment, right? So these are few things and challenges. And if you think about portability or vendor lock-in, maybe platform engineering is a good kind of savior in that context, because probably with GitOps, if this is a concern from the community that it's limiting portability or it's tightly coupling tools, I think platform engineering can also become some kind of change trigger in this. Visibility and auditability, for example, is a big area, because it's not very easy to relate what changes happened when live deployments happen. It's still kind of in the inception stages of bringing that control and traceability with GitOps. So hopefully this will be a future roadmap item in the GitOps community, for example, where we can have an AI assisted GitOps tooling to resolve these kind of problems. And if you remember our last discussion, Ellen, around MCP, right? So the Flux community has come up with an NCP server, for example, which integrates that capability and brings agentic AI into the mix. So that's another area of looking at it from a GitOps perspective. How do you make AI assisted technology more accessible for GitOps, and what kind of ecosystem connections you can make, so we can be more ecosystem centric. We have to have more flexibility in the approach, how we are deploying this into a large ecosystem or large enterprise. I leave you with these points because I think this will also give some indications of the work needed to be done in the community for GitOps.
Alan, we talk about these topics a lot, and there's always a conversation about all the things that need to be improved in the land of software engineering. And yet, every morning I wake up and there's just tons and tons of applications that seem to be deployed and working. So, like, what, is this just magic? Because if you go to a business executive, he goes, "What problem? The software's running."
Well, you're right. We are generating, whether it be through AI or not, we generate more code and more applications every year than we did the year before by a wide number. No doubt about it. But it's also because software and technology is becoming so much more important and ingrained into almost everything we do. So you need more software. You need more applications. And, so we forget the whole idea of writing, software and creating applications is 75 years old, right? It's not that old. And so it's still it's still more art than science, though I think we've made a lot of progress towards science, making it a science, not just an art. It used to be developers basically crafted code and applications in like a vacuum, like an old-time craftsman in Europe working on wood or clocks, or Swiss folks making watches, where now it's much more industrialized. It's much more scalable. It's not that craftsman per se. Hey, we all could be software developers in the world of AI, right? So there's so much riding on our software. Every company's a software company. Software is eating the world. There's so much at stake. Of course, it's continuous improvement, continuous
Look,
evolvement.
let's also not shy away from the fact that no tool, no platform can save a poorly designed software.
This is true too. Crap in is crap out.
So, how much of our software is poorly designed?
A lot
Just out
of
of
it.
curiosity.
A lot of it. And it can always be made better. That's the nature of this beast.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting better. So here's the good news: we're getting better every day, and we're the science gets better, the best practices get better, and that's that's why we sit here and talk about these things. Otherwise, we'd be talking politics all day.
But if I'm a developer and I perceive myself to be an artisan, am I going to really, emotionally warm up to the notion of science? And we've talked about this in previous shows, but who the hell wants to go to work in a factory in the first place?
Well, this is true. This is true. But I think the generation of software developers who think of themselves as artisans.
Look, I would say that, as a software practitioner, I have the left hand side of the brain and the right hand side of the brain, right? So the left hand side of the brain is co-creation with new technology, more creative side of it. And this is again community driven collaboration. And right hand side is more systematic, system oriented, system architecture. All this is required as an individual. So I think both sides have to grow together.
Agreed.
My left brain and right brain argue with each other all day long, which is why you see me mumbling to myself down the hallway.
Yeah, well, but that's what it takes. It takes a whole brain. Anyway, hey, we're over time. I got to end this one. John, Garima, Mike, thanks for joining today. Thank you for watching this episode of TechStrong Gang. We do have a full TechStrong TV schedule immediately following, so stay tuned for that if you're watching this on the live stream. If you're watching this on, TechStrong TV or the YouTube channel or the OTT, thank you for taking time to click in. We appreciate it. As I mentioned, we will not be on Friday, July 4th, for Independence Day here in the U.S. And wherever you are, cherish your freedoms, enjoy the weekend, And until Monday, then, this is Alan Schimmel for Tech Strong Gang. We're out.